respect for everybody who's here on time, I guess, President Daly, would you like to kick it off?
Sure. Well, it feels like old home week for me. Some of you may know I actually worked for National Grid for 30 years prior to becoming the president of St. Thomas Aquinas College last July. So first and foremost, just a very, very big thank you to Kelsey and to Ali and to the National Grid team for joining us tonight. Big thank you. As I could attest firsthand, I had a wonderful career. I look at the pictures on that screen. I recognize a lot of them on the slide, and it really is a wonderful company that provides wonderful opportunities for employees and for students potentially as internships. And you really can launch a long career. I can attest, having been there for 30 years. And I shared with one of the other groups. I know some of you may have been on that session, but I'll share it again just to make the point. I think Maximilian, you may have heard this already. But the way I wound up getting my job at National Grid was probably not quite as direct as you might have guessed. I ended up by becoming the president of the company for about 8 years. I ran the New York business. I was chief operating officer, but I actually started in the meter reading department. I wasn't a meter reader per se. I was a management trainee in charge of meter readers. But honestly, I had no idea when I was like all of you who are on the Zoom tonight, the students, what I wanted to do. I was an English major undergraduate. I wasn't a business major. I went back for business, in grad school, and I really didn't know what even until my senior year. And then, sure enough, there was a similar event to this. Not STAC Your Future, not quite as elaborate as what our team has created for all of our students this week, but it was an opportunity to go on a mock interview. National Grid at the time was training its employees on how to become interviewers, how to give interviews, on how to conduct interviews, on how to do, and I was a recruiter for a number of years. We called targeted selection back then. It was a kind of a scientific approach towards conducting an interview. So they needed guinea pigs. They needed students to go on the interview. So I raised my hand. True story, the Maureen Mulhern or the Shannon at the time typed up my resume with me. They did it on a typewriter, not a computer. This is a long time ago, as you can imagine. I borrowed my girlfriend's brother's suit jacket. Now, mind you, I'm 6'2", 210 pounds, maybe a little bit lighter back then. He was about 5'9", 150, so it was a little snug. Really wasn't ready for an interview, wasn't ready for a job. But you know what happened? I was able to connect, and I had the mock interview, and something connected. And I was invited back for a real interview. Presumably, I went out and got my own jacket by that point in time, and went on several more interviews. And 30 short years later, here we are. It worked out. So I think the key message, for all of you tonight, and again, some of you may have heard this on an earlier session, is it really is about networking. It really is around connecting. You never know when you're going to find that opportunity. Honestly, when I signed up for the mock interview, I was just hoping to get some practice. Didn't know that I'd wind up having a wonderful, fulfilling career. I guess I would just challenge all of you this week in particular, listen to what National Grid has to say. Listen to what some of the other employers have to say. Some of you may work for National Grid, might be just doing an internship, maybe stay there 30 years and become the president. You never know. Some may go to other companies, but it's really around starting that journey of connecting with companies. Something that I believe passionately in is I don't just own your career for 4 years. I own it for the next 50, 60, 70 years, long after you've graduated, when you're alum, helping you throughout your career. But the journey has to start while you're here in college. And by having an opportunity like you do tonight now to connect with real live recruiters, these are people who for a living try to find students just like you and then make a connection between companies and candidates. It really is a wonderful opportunity. Even if you don't wind up getting the internship, even if you don't wind up going to work there as part of your career, you'll learn a lot, and it'll help you refine your search on what types of companies, what types of careers, what type of interests that you have in life. So with that, I'm probably the perfect case study for this session, since I actually worked for National Grid. I went on one of these sessions. It really did pay off for me. And now here I am, at the college trying to help create those same types of opportunities for all of you. So with that, a big thank you. Really appreciate Ali joining us tonight, and Kelsey and the National Grid team. And at that point, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Ken. We will give a quick introduction. So I'm Allie. I'm actually in charge of the intern program here at National Grid. And Ken, I feel like no pressure for having you here. I feel like you might question some of our stats we have, but hopefully not. I will let my colleague Kelsey Kennedy also introduce herself because you'll be hearing from her tonight as well.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Kelsey Kennedy. I'm a senior specialist on our campus to careers team, and I help oversee our graduate development program here at National Grid. And when I'm not working from home, I sit in our Waltham, Massachusetts office, and I'm approaching my 4th year at the company. So, back to you, Allie.
I was going to say, before you know, it'll be 30. Also, very good disclaimer. This is my first time I've used Google Meet. So if you can't hear me, can't see my screen, please let me know. But without further ado, we'll kind of jump into the content here. So first and foremost, we wanted to tell you a little bit more about National Grid and who we are here. And we really like to say that we do bring energy to life. So with that, kind of a snapshot of who National Grid is as a company. We are an electric and natural gas supplier to our customers. However, we are leading the kind of change in the renewable energy space. That's what a big focus of what National Grid's work is doing right now. And you can see on the screen here, this map is actually technically out of date as of this week, I think. So we provide the electric and gas to New York and Massachusetts and downstate New York as well. Some of you may have heard of us. Some of your parents may get our bills sometimes. But as of this week, you can see Rhode Island is on this map. We actually sold our Rhode Island business this week. So here in the US, we do have about 7 million customers and generate about $12 billion in revenue every year. But you may have not known that we're actually a UK-based company as well. So we do have 22,000 employees kind of across the UK and the US. A majority of our workforce does sit in the US. However, we do a lot of transmission work in the UK. And then about 25% of our workforce is also female. So I like to say this too, the average age of our employees is 44 with a collective total of almost 295,000 years of experience here at National Grid. So our workforce does span about 59 nationalities, 20% do disclose themselves as being racially or ethnically diverse. And really, we see those numbers and we know that we can do better with them as well. So what National Grid is really striving for in the future is to create a better and more inclusive work environment for all of our employees. And all of our employees are kind of taking part in that action step. We also have part of our business called National Grid Ventures. And what that kind of part of our business is really looking into the renewable energy space and how we can be competitive there for, one, ourselves, but also doing best for our customers as well. So we always like to kind of use this slide as we are an energy system in transition. So again, you hear utility company, you might think, oh my goodness, like what's a utility? Isn't that like 40 years ago? You hear energy, and that's kind of where we're kind of going to in the future. So really focusing on the decarbonization, the decentralization, and the digitization of it all. So we, as a company, always like to perform better, grow our asset base, and really evolve our business so we can be the best business possible here at National Grid. So I know that's kind of a quick overview of National Grid and kind of what we do here, but I will kind of jump into our summer grid turn program now as well. So kind of the team of the grid turn program is myself and my colleague Rachel. I sit in our downstate New York office, and then Rachel actually sits in our Syracuse office as well. We like to call ourselves the dynamic duo because we really do have a vested interest in the grid turn program. We love seeing the grid turns come back every year, seeing how excited they are to really take an interest in their starting their careers. And we just really work really great together. So that's why we like to call ourselves the dynamic duo. So kind of a general overview of the grid turn program. So here at National Grid, we hire about 200 interns every summer. We're actually having our largest cohort to date with 193 coming in 2021. And really our goal of the intern program is that you become an intern at National Grid, you come back year after year, or you take those skills and maybe go elsewhere, but then eventually come back to National Grid for a full-time employment. That's our goal with the intern program, that when you're getting that professional development, but then you also want to come back to National Grid and work for us. So our grid turn program, it does take place from May to August. And really, again, I'll kind of dive in deeper into what we offer in terms of program components, but this is just a general overview. And then I'll take a second to kind of go through this slide here. And we thought it was important to highlight that in 2020, we did not cancel our intern program. I think many of you may have had friends who unfortunately got their internships canceled, or maybe you were part of that as well, which is really, really unfortunate. But here at National Grid, we understood the commitment to our talent that we made and really wanted them to come get that experience. So here on this slide, you'll kind of see some quotes that we have from 2020 grid turns. And it was funny, when I was giving this presentation in the fall, I said, oh, you know, we're shooting for an in-person experience for summer 2021, but here we are in March, over a year later with the COVID pandemic. So I am happy to share, though, that although we won't be in person this summer again, unfortunately, we are doing best by our business and our grid turns this summer by allowing some of them to be virtual, some of them to be virtual with an in-person option if it does become safe to do so. Or we have interns who will report in person because their job requires them to do so, and they felt comfortable as well to come in person. We weren't going to force people to come on site if they didn't want to. So again, that's just really our commitment here at National Grid, to do best by our grid turns and always honor the commitment to hire them every summer. So on day one of the intern program, it does start with orientation. Orientation does look a little bit different in the virtual space. Last year, we hosted what we call the orientation modules, where for an hour or two for 5 days, you sat with Rachel and me and learned about National Grid. You heard from executives, you heard from a panel. In a normal setting, it would typically be just one full day of all of this good stuff, of networking activities. But again, we didn't want to make people sit in front of their computer for 8 hours, and that's why we kind of broke it up. But then kind of after orientation, this is all the good stuff that you'll get throughout the summer here at National Grid. So we have something called a speaker series, which is where you'll hear department overviews, you'll get a public speaking workshop, resume building. We have I&D coming in and talk to our grid turns. So this is really where you will hear from National Grid, but it's also kind of engaging at the same time with that professional development, but also learning our business. We also host site visits, so we think it's important for grid turns to go into the office to see what kind of place they may be working in a couple of years. Again, however, last summer and this summer, really unfortunate that you can't go in person. However, I am impressed with the technology that we had this past summer to really allow for the grid turns to see these sites. It was just recorded over video. We host National Intern Day every year. We always say this is an event for interns by interns, because our HR interns actually put this event on, and it's really a great day. I think this year we're actually turning it into a whole week because we really just enjoyed the kind of time, the fun that comes along with National Intern Day. So always celebrate that. You do partake in volunteer opportunities. Here at National Grid, we are extremely invested in giving back to the communities that we serve, and we want to implement that in our Grid Turn program as well. So last year, we actually created something called Grid Turns Give Back, where before their start date, they actually had the opportunity to volunteer in their local community. I think it was for 30 hours, and they actually received a stipend for doing so, because we unfortunately had to push their start dates back last year. And then this year, looking ahead, since we'll be able to start on time, they'll get the full experience. We're actually creating a volunteering week, and kind of, again, even myself, this may be news to Kelsey too, but the whole team is actually going to go out in their community to do it too, because not only do we want to teach our Grid Turns this, we want to live by example too. So really, really love those volunteer opportunities. And then at the end of the summer, we do like to host some end of summer event. So this will let you network with fellow employees at National Grid, executives who come and see your work. Again, over the past couple of years, this has looked different. So I think one year we did presentations. The next year we had what we call their Grid Turn Summer Showcase. So it's kind of like a career fair type of setup that you kind of presented on what you did all summer. Last year, and we're probably going to do it again this year, is something that we're calling the Grid Turn Group Case Study. So because you're in a virtual space, we want to put you up with 10 other interns who you may have not worked with or may not get the chance to all summer, to really work with them on a project that's going to benefit you and your public speaking skills, but also benefit the business as well. So that's a lot about the program. So you might be wondering, how do you become a summer grid turn? So I know that this is early thinking. I know it's March. However, fall will be here before you know it. So really, our qualifications for a summer grid turn is that you do have to apply on our careers website. So although summer 2022 may be way out of your minds, we actually start recruiting in the fall. So I always say, get your calendars out now to kind of mark down, hey, September, October, National Grid's intern postings go live, just so that you know and not forget that deadline. So you must apply on our careers website. You must be pursuing a college degree from an accredited institution, which you are attending this presentation, so I'm assuming you all are. You must be enrolled in school as a full-time student for both spring and fall of 2022. Must be 18 years of age or older. And then what we really look for in our candidates when we're going through resumes and things like that is really demonstrative, effective communication skills, problem solving, really leaders on campus. I always say too, we can always teach you the stuff you need to know at National Grid. We're just looking for people who take the active interest in themselves and want to grow themselves further in their career. So kind of the intern selection process and timeline, I quickly glance over this. So our applications will open in early fall and they will close late October. And Maureen, I can also let you know when they go live so we can share this with all the students. Interviews for our grid turn program will happen mid-November through mid-December, and then offers are made no later than late December. And then our start dates are to be determined, but they will be in May and June of 2022 because we like to offer that flexibility of 2 different start dates for the intern program. And then I think I've done a lot of talking about interns and National Grid, so I will turn it over to my colleague Kelsey now to talk about our full-time opportunities.
All right, fantastic. Thanks, Allie. No, just hearing you talk a little bit more about summer and grid turns just gets me excited to welcome the grid turns as well, and also our graduates. And I'm so happy right now too. I'm looking outside my window and it's still very light out, so there's a lot to be hopeful for. So if you want to go to the next slide, I'd love to introduce Team GDP. So as I mentioned, I help oversee our graduate development program here at National Grid. And I have my 2 fellow colleagues, Marcus Caruso and Haley McDonald, who also support the program as well. Haley sits with me in our Waltham office, and then Marcus actually sits with Allie in our Brooklyn office as well. And then to just give a brief overview of what the graduate development program is at National Grid. So National Grid Graduate Development Program is the company's flagship pipeline program where we target recent college graduates joining the company in entry-level full-time positions. So just really want to reiterate with you all on the call that these are full-time positions within the company. And we hire for a variety of different positions. It's really based on the business need of each year, but we're always hiring different engineers, different analyst positions, whether that's IT, HR, you name it. All of our positions will be shared on our careers website when it's time for recruiting season in the fall. But again, these are full-time positions, and the program is really just there to be that added development throughout your first year and a half with the company. So I love what Ken said at the beginning. It's really about providing you those connections and those opportunities, and that's what we aim for within this program. So we want to help develop you as future leaders, give you those opportunities to grow your professional skills and expand your network, and just create this foundation to launch a successful and lasting career here at National Grid. And we do this with our 3 components. So Allie, if you want to go to the next slide. Perfect. So the first component is the GDP Orientation. So as I mentioned earlier, all graduates will start their careers off with an orientation to the business. So again, you are in full-time positions, but before you enter those full-time positions, you go through an orientation. Typically it's 8 weeks, and you get the opportunity to spend time learning all about the different core functions of the business. So intro to gas, intro to electric, what is energy, different business sides of the business. So IT, finance, National Grid Ventures. So you get to learn all about that during those 8 weeks, along with meet different members of our executive team. And then typically, and I'll get to the typically in a moment, you have the opportunity to travel throughout our different jurisdictional territories. So all over Massachusetts, upstate, downstate New York, seeing the major sites and also engaging with those stakeholders. Because our goal is at the end of this orientation, you and your fellow graduates have this in-depth understanding of who National Grid is as a business, but also how we do that business throughout. So I said typically about, we send our graduates traveling to these different locations. So this past year, as we all know, has not been a typical year. So for our 2020 cohort, we had 81 graduates and we were in a virtual orientation. And going into 2021, we are also going to be doing a virtual orientation as well. And our hope with our 2021 grads is that through the development sessions, which is the next component, where we get our graduates back on a monthly basis to continue that learning and development that we focus so much on during that orientation. We're really hoping that we can be in person, given if it's safe to do so. So, we have the grads. I joke with my 2020 grads, I'm like, I don't even know how tall you all are. We haven't been in the same room. So still very hopeful that we can be together again in person one day. But for those development sessions, they can range into numerous different categories. We've done effective communication and public speaking, conflict management. We've done stakeholder engagement. Actually, Ken was a participant in one of our leadership panels back in one of our March ones. I think it was like right before the pandemic, or it was in 2018, something along those lines. But really, we listen to our graduates and see what areas they want to continue to develop. And what my job was we kind of go out there and make it happen, which is great to see. And then the last component of the program is what we call our capstone projects. So these actually kick off at the end of our graduates' first full year within the company. So we work with different executives and senior leaders at National Grid to identify different business projects or initiatives that graduates can work on in small groups. So you and your fellow graduates will have 3 to 4 months to work on these projects, and then present out your findings or solutions to these executives, your manager, and your peers at National Grid. So we've seen our graduates do some amazing work. One thing I always like to reiterate is we don't pull you from your full-time roles. This is really, again, I'm going to keep going back to that development word. It's all about those development opportunities, something you can put on your resume, put on your objectives to really show that growth that how you utilize those skills that you've been building on that first full year. So that's why we kind of wait to do the capstone at the end of that first full year. So those are the 3 components. And again, these are full-time positions at National Grid. So once you're a graduate, you're always a graduate. The capstone is that last formal piece, but you still have a job at National Grid. I always like to clear that up. That's always a question I get asked. So, and then Allie, you can go to the next slide. So what makes a graduate? So as I mentioned earlier, the graduate development program, we're really trying to build and target those future leaders within the company. So we're after those high potential individuals and bringing those into the business. So we are looking for students to have either completed their bachelor's or master's degree. You need to, for June 2022, oh my gosh, 2022, haven't said that in a while. So for our June 2022 cohorts, you will have to graduate between May of 2021 and June of 2022. Unfortunately, we are filled for our June 2021 cohort for this summer. You do have to have a valid driver's license as of now. This is due typically to the in-person travel during that orientation period. Again, we are looking for those future leaders of the world and those high potential candidates. So we're looking for you to have effective communication and interpersonal skills. We want to see that proven leadership skills. So whether that you were, captain of a sports team in student government, or even took the lead on a project or volunteer event, that's really what we're kind of looking for to see on your resume. You do have the ability, you have to be able to start in June of 2022. And then applicants for GDP must have work authorization that does not now or in the future require sponsorship of a visa of employment authorization in the United States for the program. Great. And then just to talk a little bit more about the GDP selection process, all of our positions will be posted this fall, probably around September and October timeframe. Be happy to share, with Maureen once those positions have been posted and we have a better range of, what positions we're looking for. Happy to shoot those your way. But, one thing I always like to say with the graduate development program is you don't just have to apply to one position. You can be interested in more than one. So we encourage students to apply to as many of those positions that they feel that they are most interested in, or think they match those skill sets, because you can be considered for more than one position. So don't feel like you can only apply to one. Encourage you to apply to as many as you feel interested. If you are, successful with that initial screening, you would be invited to have a phone screen with a member of the Campus to Careers team, and that would be in late fall. And this is just to make sure that, one, you're still interested in the position and make sure that position is still a great fit for you. And then we would have a final round interviews, which are either going to be late 2021 this year or January. I think that's something we're still working out right now. We'll post that on our careers website when decisions have been made. But during that final round interview, typically we hope to be in person, but this past year they were virtual. But we do have two components. So we have your standard 2-on-1 interview. So that's when you would interview with a member of the team, typically the hiring manager or another colleague, and they ask you those standard interview questions, but that's also your opportunity to make sure that the position's a good fit for you. So I always encourage candidates to come prepared with, what questions do you want to make sure that you get answered, so this is the right decision for you. So whether you apply to National Grid or you apply to other jobs, make sure during that interview you're getting all the information that you need to make the best decision for you. And then we also do a group case study, which is a great opportunity for you to demonstrate those collaborative skills, those problem-solving skills, and just gives that holistic view of you as a candidate to our hiring team. All right. I was going to say, I think this is our last slide, and then we'll open it up for some Q&A. So just really want to hit it home that National Grid is a fantastic place to work. As I mentioned, I'm coming up on my 4th year, hoping to last another 30 like Ken did. But, we offer some really great job stability. I think that's, Ali touched upon it with the Grid Turns section, is that even during, last year, crazy year, so unpredicted, it was just amazing to see National Grid's leadership step up and commit to honoring their commitment for not only our Grid Turn program, but for our graduates as well. We did not have to rescind any offers, anything of that nature. And it was just amazing to see that commitment from the company. And it just made me so proud as an employee working for them. Great work-life balance and a huge focus on inclusion and diversity in the workplace. And then a couple of our great benefits I always especially like to hire to young professionals and students like yourselves. We have a great student loan repayment program and also a tuition reimbursement program. So if you're looking to go back to school or you have some student loans, we have some really great programs that help assist with those. And I know especially with the grads or my graduates, they take advantage of those right when they join. We get 3 weeks vacation. We have an award-winning 401k program. And I think what's just amazing to see, especially with my graduates as well, is that we do track their progress and we see that they tend to progress a little bit faster and also stay with the company a little bit longer compared to the traditional full-time hire. So with that, I think I'll stop talking so we can leave some room for questions. So I'll pass it back to you, Maureen.
Great, thank you. And congratulations on all those great recognitions that your organization has received. It's very impressive. So we have a couple questions in the chat, and I'll start with Shane. Had asked, what is National Grid's approach to the training, development, and cultivation of their employees, and why do you like working for them?
Yeah, Kelsey, I can take this one first because I know you just got done talking. I always like to kind of say that National Grid is a company that invests in you if you invest in them. So kind of what Kelsey just touched upon, all of the great benefits that we have here, all of the trainings, we are a large company. So if I, got tired of HR doing the intern program, I could go get more experience doing finance if I really wanted to. It's just about asking those right questions and learning about what opportunities are here for you at National Grid and taking advantage of them. I actually just graduated in December with my master's because I took advantage of the tuition reimbursement. I was just like, it was a career move I wanted to make, and so I did. So again, National Grid does have all of those opportunities here for you. You just have to kind of take advantage of them. And then, so I'm approaching 3 years with the company, which is also crazy to think about. But what I really like about working here about National Grid is really our team dynamic. And I know, so Kelsey and I are on the same team. We have great team members. You saw Rachel, you saw Mark, you saw Haley. We get a lot of great work done here. And then really just have a lot of fun doing it as well, which I think is rare in an organization sometimes, especially, you know, people might hear that we're a large organization and be like, oh no, like a large company, I would never want to work for a large company. You know, you get so lost, but that is entirely not true here at National Grid. You really do kind of get that small company type of feel with the environment that we have here.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We had another question from Ryan Collins. Must you be eligible to work in the U.S. without visa sponsorship for the summer internship position also?
Yes, so I can take this one too. So you just have to have your CPT or OPT documents. You do have to be authorized to work in the United States, but we do kind of accept those CPT, OPT candidates.
And just to add on, so I know for just my program, you know, you have to have that valid work authorization in the United States. That's just with the graduate development program. We don't hire all entry-level positions. So I do encourage those folks, if you want to go to our careers website and take a look at just other full-time opportunities, not through the program. They do look at those case by case. So I did want to point that out.
And then I would assume with you having locations in the UK, that students, could they apply through the general link for UK opportunities? And because we do have a lot of international students at the college. So this is a big question that we keep getting in general about sponsorship and the internships and the entry level. So would you encourage them to consider working in the UK if they are from that country to start, and then maybe they could eventually segue their way into the US? Is that something that you've seen happen, or?
I was going to say we operate very separately from our UK counterparts, but I think there's actually rumors that we are going to be intersecting very shortly. We might be becoming a global team. So I think if they are, you know, eligible to work in the UK, definitely apply to our UK graduate program. They have a whole separate link, and we can probably send that link in the chat too, Allie, right?
Sorry, I was muted. I'm going to look it up right now and then put it in the chat.
Okay.
Those are great questions. Do any students want to just jump in with a question?
I mean, Maureen, I don't want it to be an infomercial, but just to kind of reinforce some of the points you heard from Kelsey and Allie, and I thought there was excellent presentation. You know, one is I started as a graduate. That was my first role in the company. Back then we called it something different, a management trainee, but it's the same as the current graduate program. So, you know, it really is a wonderful opportunity. Tuition reimbursement, whether you're at National Grid or wherever you go, I certainly would encourage you to look at that as one of the benefits you seek. I can't tell you how many of my degrees were paid for by National Grid. I can tell you pretty much every one of them after my undergraduate degree was through National Grid's tuition reimbursement program. So really encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity. And then international, you know, it is a global world now. I was just a boy from Brooklyn, and I spent most of my career in Brooklyn. And I had a chance actually to live and work in the United Kingdom as part of my career with National Grid. So it might not be the first job, it might be later on, but certainly, you know, when you're looking at companies, keep all of the horizons and all the potential open for yourselves, certainly at National Grid, and then in other companies that you're considering as well.
What would be like a typical day in the life of an intern?
Yes, I love this question. And I'm also going to give you, I like to call it my cop-out answer. So because we have 200 interns, they span all of our different jurisdictional territories. So we have interns in New York, downstate New York, Massachusetts. So they're kind of all across the board. And as you can imagine, they all do different things. So we have finance, we have HR, computer, engineers, all of them. I always say, like, the only major we probably don't hire for the intern program is nursing majors. Like, that's what I always tell people too. So we really hire everybody, and really the job roles depend on what department you get hired into. And that's where the cop-out answer kind of comes from. So, you know, you get all those development opportunities, our program components, those are all summer long, but really the role really depends on what kind of department you get hired into. You know, somebody who gets hired in our electric department in upstate New York is going to do something totally different than somebody who gets hired in our gas department in downstate New York. But what's really great, I always say too, you know, you're going to be an actual intern getting hands-on experience. You're going to be doing work that impacts our customers and our business. You're not going to be the intern running to go get coffee. You're going to really get good hands-on experience here at National Grid. So I always say it's a cop-out answer, and I'm sorry, but the role kind of does depend on what department you get hired into.
Thank you.
Great question.
I just want to add to, with your lunch and learns, from what I saw, you cover topics with the interns such as resume writing and maybe some other professional development topics. And that's a really nice thing. I mean, it's a well-developed internship program from what I've seen and from what you talked about today. And that's something that the students should be taking into consideration when they're looking at internships. Organizations like this that really put a lot of effort into training and developing you as a professional, and also opening doors potentially for you for your first entry-level position. These are the kinds of companies that I would definitely recommend you take seriously. And again, you know, these applications are going to be coming out in the fall, as do many of these big firms. So if any of you are interested and you want to reach out to me in the fall, I'll certainly look into it if I haven't already talked with Kelsey or Allie about this, but it's in terms of the exact deadlines, but definitely something you guys should be thinking about in terms of an internship. Does anybody have any other questions? Okay,
Sorry, Ali, did you say the internship runs from May through August?
Yes, so we offered 2 different start dates, one in late May and then one in early June for 2022. They are to be determined. And then the programship technically ends the last Friday in August, but we do have the flexibility for interns to choose their end date, as we know that students go back to school at different times. So while the program technically ends the last Friday in August, we are flexible with end dates as well. I would say it's typically, I think, 8 to 12 weeks interns stay with us before they have to go back to school.
okay, well, I don't see any more questions in the chat, and we are out of time, but I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I hope you learned a lot. It was a very comprehensive and presentation, so thank you so much, Kelsey and Allie, and thanks to President Daly so much for, you know, moderating this and introducing everything at the beginning. I don't know if you have any final words you want to say, President Daly?
No, I'll just piggyback with the big thank you. You know, obviously National Grid was a very, very special part of my career. I'm not going to promise that all of you are going to work there for 30 years and then someday get to be the president of STAC. That's an added bonus at this stage. But really, just by pursuing opportunities to get doors open for yourselves, you'll see that it really will lead to wonderful careers. So big thank you to Allie and to Kelsey. Really enjoyed seeing the old team in action. You guys did a great job. And for our students, you know, this is what good looks like. This is what your role models are. This is what you will all be someday. I'll say that again. You will all be successful someday. This is how it gets started. So a big thank you to all of you.
Thank you again. Just students, if you could just make sure to check the chat for the link for the feedback form and just fill that out for us to get credit for attending. And thank you again, Kelsey and Allie.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Take care.